Hello students. In last period we studied that crop production management. In crop production management we studied the nutrient management. The plant require different nutrients for their growth and developments. And then we studied that how we input these different nutrients with the help of manures, that is of three types of manures there: compost, vermicompost and green manures, or through the fertilizers. Also we've added the different nutrients into the soil with the help of fertilizers. If we compare the manures and fertilizers, what is the comparison between manure and fertilizers? Manure and fertilizers. Manures is decomposed organic matter. Decomposed organic matter. It is decomposed organic matter, but the fertilizer is made up from chemicals. Chemicals. Manures formed from natural. These are the natural, formed from the natural process. It is natural, and but it is artificial. It is formed inside the factories. That's why it is artificial. It is required in large quantity. Means manure required in large quantity. And it is in small quantity. It is required in small quantity. Manure is not nutrient specific. Not nutrient specific. But the fertilizers is nutrient specific. Fertilizers is nutrient specific. It is made from particular types of nutrients, that is nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. It adds, manure adds, it adds organic matter in soil. It does not add. Add. That is the organic matter. Manure adds organic matter, but not fertilizer add the organic matter. It difficult to transport. Manure is bulky. It is bulky. It is difficult to transport. Difficult to transport. It is easy to transport. It easily transport from one place to another place. Excess use of manure not harmed. Not harmed the plants. Excess use of fertilizers, excess use harm the plants or fertilizer. That manure reduce the soil fertility, sorry, manure increase the soil fertility, the soil texture, water holding capacity, but the fertilizers harm the soil or reduce the soil fertility and other component of the soil. So these are the main difference between manures and fertilizers. Now that next is of irrigation. Next topic of which is including crop production management, that is the irrigation. What is the irrigation? The process of supplying of water, process of supplying water to crops, that is known as irrigation. The process of supplying of water to crops is known as irrigation. Irrigation is occurs through the different modes. The different types of modes of irrigation is there. That is through the tanks. During the monsoon season, we fill up the tanks, and on unavailability of monsoon, that time we have to utilize the water from the tanks. Canal system, canal system that canal takes irrigation water from the rivers. So if we form the canal with the river system, that also help in the irrigation. Wells, wells, wells are the uh, particular water reservoirs which is uh, help in the irrigation. So two types of well is there. One is of open wells, another is of tube wells. These are recharged with the underground waters, and was normally during the rainy season they also provide the water to the plants, but uncertainty of that monsoon or scanty monsoon that not fulfill the requirement of water, so we have to irrigate plants. The tank through canal system, wells, drip irrigation system. Drip irrigation system is a type of system in which the drop by drops water is provided to the plants. In our school garden, this type of irrigation system is applied, and one more types of irrigation supply especially utilized in our school, that is sprinkle system, drip irrigation and sprinkle. So especially the sprinkler system is utilized in our school garden, through which we irrigate the plants which is present in our school. And river water system, or we can say river valley system and river. So sometimes river directly help in the irrigation of different crops. So irrigation, that is the supplying of water to the plants. We can supply the water with the help of tank, with the help of canal system, with the help of wells or drip irrigation system or river water system. So these are the different types of uh, irrigation system which is applied by the farmers. Next is of cropping pattern. Cropping pattern, that different types of models of raising of crops, different types of models of raising of crops into the field, that is known as cropping patterns. Cropping patterns can increase the productivity and decrease the requirement of water, requirement of nutrients from the soil. So these cropping pattern also reduce the loss of crops through the insect or pest. So following cropping patterns utilized by the farmers. First is of mixed cropping. Mixed cropping is the technique of growing of two or more crops together in the same field in the same time. Growing of two or more crops together in same field at same time. That is the mixed cropping. With the help of mixed cropping, we can reduce the failure of crops. So these crops, if the one crops is affected from the disease, other will not affected. In this way, we can reduce the failure of crops. One crops failure is there, but not other crops. So we utilize the mixed cropping for the cropping pattern. For example, groundnut and sunflower. Groundnut and sunflower both grown together. Another is ragi and gram growing together. Maize and urad bean growing together in the same field. Barley and gram growing together in the same field. So these are the different types of crops which is grown together in the same field in the same time. So what are the advantages of mixed cropping? If we see the advantage of mixed cropping, that is of no risk of complete crop failure, no risk of complete crop failure. If the one crop is affected, another crop is not affected. In this way, the 50% crop is affected and 50% crop is not affected. So complete crop failure is not there. Increase production. Increase production. These two crops which is choose like that way, in which both the crops not having same requirement, both the crops having not same requirement of nutrients, same requirement of water and other things, and also help in the growth of other crops. So in this way they increase the production, improve soil fertility, improve soil fertility, reduce irrigation, reduce use of insecticides, pesticides, use of pesticides or insecticides or maximum utilization of nutrients. Nutrients can utilize maximally. These are the some benefits of mixed cropping. Another types of cropping, that is of intercropping. Intercropping is the type of cropping in which two or more crops grown in the separate lines. Intercropping is a type of cropping in which two or more crops grow in the separate lines in separate rows. That is known as intercropping. For example, suppose here we grown one crops. This is the one crops, and here we grow another crops. Then first one crops. So this is the different types of crops grown in or shown in the different particular patterns in the different rows. That is known as intercropping, in which different crops just like soya bean plus bajra, or sometime more than two, that is maize, grown in the same field at a same time. So this is the intercrop. What are the advantages of intercropping? Advantage means it increase productivity, increase productivity. Suppose here one crop is affected, another crop is not affected from disease and any other things. Here the two or different types of seeds not mixed before the sowing, but in mixed cropping two or more seeds mixed before the sowing, but in intercropping they are not mixed. So it is easy to harvest, easy to harvest, easy to harvest because they are present in the different rows. But in mixed cropping they are not grown in the particular patterns, so they are not easy to harvest. Then easy to supplying of fertilizers. Supplying of fertilizers. If we supply the fertilizers, it can be easy than the mixed cropping. And if we compare these two cropping, that is of mixed cropping and intercropping, the intercropping is better than the mixed cropping. First, mixed cropping, mixed before sowing, mix the seed before sowing, mix the seed before sowing, and not mixed. They are shown in the different rows. They are shown in the different rows. Easy to harvest, not easy to harvest. Mixed cropping, not easy to harvest. It is easy to harvest. Intercropping, not easy to supplying of fertilizers. Supplying of fertilizers, easy to supplying of fertilizers. fertilizer. Again, that mixed cropping is not easy to supplying of water. That intercropping is easy to supplying of water, means irrigation, fertilizers, and other things cannot easily supply in the mixed cropping, but it is easily supplying in the intercroppings. So these are the some differences between the mixed cropping and intercropping. Now, the last pattern is of crop rotation. Crop rotation, that growing of two or more different, more than two types of crops, growing or two or more types of crops in the same field in pre-plant succession. In pre-plant succession is called crop rotation. Growing of two or more than two types of crops in the same field in pre-plant succession. Suppose 2 year grow one types of crops, and then after 2 year grow another types of crops, then after 2 year grow this first one of crops. That is known as crop rotation. In this way, the requirement of the particular one crops is the same, but in other year the requirement of another crops will be different. So the soil fertility is not decreases, or sometimes that disease which is present in the previous crop that inside the soil, that will be again eradicated or removed. So today we discuss about three patterns, that is cropping pattern, the mixed cropping, intercropping, and crop rotation.